Hi, everybody. It's Alan Fine, and I'm here with Peter Velitis, who's the Senior Vice President of Airline Relations for Internova. Now, if you've been reading Insider Travel Report, you'll know that Internova was formerly the Travel Leaders Group. And so he is here to talk to us about a subject dear to our hearts, air travel, at a time when not only planes are flying, but viruses. And this is Insider Travel Report. Peter, thanks for talking to us.
Thanks for having me, Alan. I think this is a subject that we talk about 24/7 at Internova Travel Group and all our business units. And I think the travel advisors, especially today, are scratching their heads saying, what is going on? Where can I go? And where can I send my customers?
Let's do a quick review. I mean, what's the airline industry been like since February?
The airlines, like any other business, is trying to preserve cash. And once the crisis hit, they shut down. They just put all their planes out in the desert, retired old planes, and they're flying very, very little. Key destinations, some places have additional flights, and primarily because they're taking cargo, because the only thing that's moving right now is cargo, which is at depressed pricing anyway. But so you have flights going. Just to give you an example, we went from thousands and thousands of flights to under 10,000 in the United States. So there's limited. Matter of fact, as you
over what period of time? The 10,000.
Well, right now that's where we are today. We have these limited flights that are in the market today. So what happened was in March, as the crisis deepened, the airlines started grounding. Now, it's not like a light switch where you turn it off. Planes have to be parked. Mechanics have to come in. Simple things like the air and the tires of a plane have to be maintained. So they slowly started winding down their airlines. So it took some time. They got there somewhere in the month of end of March, early April, that we probably hit the bottom. Probably, I would say business-wise of flight time, the bottom was hit sometime in the month of end of April, beginning of May. That was for the United States probably the lowest point, and now we're just hovering along the bottom.
What did Travel Leaders Group, because you weren't Internova yet,
right,
do to help the situation as this was developing?
Actually, so I will tell you, the catalyst for me was the weekend of February 15th is when we first saw the explosive growth of COVID in Italy. Now, Italy is one of the top global destinations, especially in the leisure market. Here's February. We're talking about the summer season coming up. We rang an internal alarm bell on February 17th. I remember very vividly that on the 17th of February, I went to J.D. O'Hara, who is the CEO of the Internova Travel Group, and said, we have a problem, folks. We need to start preparing for this. This thing is going to not be pretty. So we have a big analytical team. We started designing our own platforms to be able to. We took the Johns Hopkins platform that showed where COVID was starting to increase. We took a number of other platforms, and then we tied it in with our bookings. It's called the Green Report. At that time, it was Green Report because more countries were green than red. Today, everything is red. So we quickly established a COVID team. We have a crisis team. And started meeting every day. This team met every day. Now we're weekly because we've kind of have a lot of programs in place. So we did two things. We had a daily crisis meeting every day to talk about all the various parts of our business: air, hotel, car, cruise, impact, duty of care. Do we have employees in the world, and how do we bring everybody home quickly? And we did this before CDC went to level 4. And then what we do, and which is critical to any advisor, is we send out 3 updates a day, morning, afternoon, and late, under airmail, that started pushing out all the relevant, important information. So we kind of consolidated, and then, of course, we have it on our internet site. Data was key. It was very important that we were tracking up to last month over 700 waivers and changes requirements came out. Some countries, some airlines still won't give our people back their money. And then we had to go to credit cards. So that's what we did. We did 2 critical things. representation from all of Travel Leaders, all our brands, Pro Travel International, Zelle, Altour, CTS in Mexico, yes, our MICE business, and of course, Travel Leaders Network and Travel Leaders International, Barhead, and then Pro, Zelle, and Colette's, our offices in the UK. Everyone had representatives on there, and we had daily meetings on what to do.
So you brought up cancellations and refunds. The airlines received all that government support, and there was a big hubbub about them releasing money. How well did they, and how well are they doing now with that issue?
So in the initial onslaught, when the airlines had yet to realize how deep this might get, their first instinct was, let me give you credit and travel in the future. No one expected that this summer we'd have no flights. Really, they probably thought it was a shorter window. And most of that is because by the time March started happening, if you look at China was coming out of it while we were going into it. So they said December, January, February, March, 4 months, March, April, May, June, we can try to save some of the summer. Unfortunately, we're now going to go longer than what happened in China. So over $30 billion was floating out there in refunds. Now, keep in mind, the airline sold tickets with anticipation of delivering goods and services and not delivering a refund. So the money was allocated, was spent. No airline had that kind of cash reserves, and if they did, they'd have to deplete their cash reserves, and then you worry about the viability of the airline. So the first attempt was, let me give you credits. Our customers then started realizing that, hey, I'm losing my job. I don't know if I can travel. I don't know if I want to travel. So the issue then, we fought for our customers and said, look, I'd rather get the cash back from my customers, right? And if they want to go, they'll buy a new ticket. So some airlines were great. I think we had special terms being Travel Leaders Group and our size and our relationship with our good airline partners. So we had a leg up from somebody who's not in a franchisee or is not aligned. And we quickly started processing them, especially in domestic carriers. Then, of course, the Department of Transportation came out again to clarify that they must give refunds because particularly one airline was saying, we'll let you a year. If you don't travel in a year, you get your money after a year. Nobody wanted to wait for that. We still, to this day, United, Delta, American are fine, and things are going quite well. Most of our customers, those who wanted a refund, obtained a refund, unless it was something pre-COVID, no-show or something out of the ordinary.
Right.
That's correct. We still have problem with foreign flag carriers who actually, in all honesty, folks, they don't have the money to give back. They're trying to open up again to get money, to give credits. Then you have a couple carriers that went out of business. You have a couple of carriers such as South African Airways, which we don't know what will end up happening with them. So it's the foreign flags are a little bit in a flux where you can't. Even our good friends and partners at Air Canada are still holding on credits and not refunds because I suspect if they give back all this money, they won't be able to operate.
What came of the, didn't the major airline executives have a meeting with Mike Pence recently, and what came of that? Did you hear any stuff about it?
That they did. That was on Friday, in the afternoon. They had that meeting. I think it was Friday. So it wasn't long. It was 45 minutes. And what came out of it was the airlines, Pence agreed with the airlines to do contact tracing, using a third-party act. The question becomes is, the government has failed to give guidance to the airlines. They have failed to say during this COVID, here's the guidance we want you to have. They talk about the temperature checks, right? The airline...
Who's supposed to do that?
Well, the government should. It shouldn't be up to the airlines. It's not their responsibility. It should be the government should give guidance. Now, the TSA, I understand, was willing to do it, but I think the government didn't want them to do it. If you experience a walkthrough like I did with Delta and United, you could see exactly how they operate. Whether you're an employee or you're a vendor in their terminal, because obviously they control their terminals, you go through a temperature check. And they do it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So there's a debate where someone says, well, the 100.3 really doesn't prove anything. There is some truth to the fact that if you're outside in the heat and you're walking from the parking lot, you naturally might exceed 103. Then what? It's really something that I think it's a false sense of security. I think what the airlines have done has been spectacular as far as explaining to the customer what the experience is going to be. I experienced it firsthand.
All right, so we'll talk about that in a moment. I also wanted to talk about the fact that, I mean, actually, are there any numbers or statistics on how many people contracted COVID-19 because of a flight?
Right.
Because I know that the cruise industry was maligned, and I think that the numbers of deaths from a cruise is under 100.
Right. So I sit on IATA's GTEC board, and I actually asked that question, and IATA said none, not one, zero.
And the CDC did a no sail, but they never did a no fly.
It's a little different. Remember, our government also reacts what's on the nightly news, right? They're very driven on the nightly news. So when you have this big cruise vessel, right, and it's parked out in the water and there's people hanging sheep, help us, save us, we want to get off. And it's true. I feel horrible for the people who are stranded on a cruise ship and scared to death because of the unknown. Remember, when all that was happening with the cruise ship, we didn't have the data we had. The virus was running rampant. There was mixed messages. I don't even know did they give people masks on the cruise ship or segregate them. It was just a total unknown.
It was too new.
But in the airlines, right? First, there's a few differences. One, you're not on there for 7 days. A couple hours you're on, you're off. Second, you have the HEPA air filters that filter out the air more than a hospital, and
which ironically the cruise industry is adopting.
Right. So and here's the other thing. You're not on a plane. There's not many touch points. They do clean it. Although people complain, for the most part, even take pre-COVID, how many people do you actually know who took a flight and got sick? Not many, if any, very few.
But of course, it's also hard to figure out, since you're touching so many points,
yes,
where you actually got it. So
yes,
that may benefit the airlines as well.
No, but I'm not saying COVID. I'm just saying in general. Look at the millions of people who fly on an annual basis on these planes, right? If there was something that was spreading, right? Like, look, if Legionnaires was in a hotel, it goes through the air condition, right? And so many people with 20, 30, 40. Have you ever heard in the airline industry that 50 people got off a plane you don't?
That a whole plane was infected. That never happened.
Right, you don't.